Introducing optionals. Up until now, every time you declare a variable or constant, you assign a value immediately. As you will see, Swift does not allow you to declare a variable or constant without a value. But what if you want to declare a variable first and assign a value later? In this case, you would use optionals. For more information on optionals, visit the URL on the screen. Let's take a look at how to create and use optionals now and see how they may be used in a program. Using optionals and optional binding. Imagine you're writing a program where the user needs to enter the name of their spouse. Of course, if the user is not married, there would be no value for this. So you can use an optional to represent the spouse name. Let's see how this works. Type in and run the following code. Var spouse colon string print spouse name. Since Swift is type safe, it will display an error. Variable spouse name used before being initialized. And here's the same error in Program IZ as well as on Linux. You can assign an empty string to spouse name as follows. Modify your code as shown. I save it. I execute it. I don't get any error since it's an empty string. And now here under under Program IZ, I've already fixed it. And let's go ahead and fix it under Xcode. Fix it, I run it, and now the error message goes away. This makes the error go away, but an empty string is still a value, and we don't want spouse name to have a value. In cases like this, we can use optionals. An optional may have one or two possible states. Either it does not contain a value or it contains a value, and you can access the value by a process called unwrapping. To make spouse name an optional, type a question mark after the type annotation and run your program. To make to make spouse name an optional, type a question mark after the type annotation and run your program. Even though there is a warning, the program will execute. Ignore the warning for now. The value of spouse name is shown as nil in the results area, and nil is printed in the debug area. It's a special keyword that means the optional has no value. Let's assign a value to spouse name. Modify the code as shown. Let's assign a value to spouse name. Modify the code as shown. We added the spouse name equals Lydia. When you run this, you would expect Lydia to appear in the debug area. Instead, optional Lydia is printed, showing that the optional has not been unwrapped. Here we have it under Program IZ and under Linux. Add one more line of code as follows. Let greeting equals hello plus spouse name. You'll get an error in the debug area. Uh, you'll get an error, and the debug area shows you where the error occurred. This happened because you can't use an optional value without unwrapping it first. Click on the red circle to display possible fixes, and you'll see the following. Cannot find greeting in scope, cannot find let in scope. Consecutive statements on a line must be separated by semicolon. insert semicolon. Value of optional type string must be unwrapped to a value of type string. Coalesce using question mark to provide a default when the optional value contains nil. Force unwrap using exclamation point to abort execution if the optional value contains nil. Click the second fix and you'll see an exclamation mark appear after spouse name in the last line of code. The program runs fine now, and the value of greeting is hello. Lydia, as shown in the results area, force unwraps an optional whether it contains a value or not. It works fine if spouse name has a value, but if spouse name is nil, your program will crash. To see this, modify your program as shown and run it. Since spouse name is now nil, the program crashed while attempting to force unwrap spouse name. A better way of handling this is to use optional bindings. In optional bindings, we attempt to assign the value in an optional to a temporary variable. We can name it whatever we like. In the assignment, if the assignment is successful, a block of code is executed. Modify your program as follows and run it. You'll notice that nothing appears in the debug area and that your program no longer crashes, even though spouse name is nil. Here's how it works. If spouse name has a value, it will be unwrapped and assigned to spouse, and the if statement will return true. The statements between the curly braces will be executed, and the constant greeting will then be assigned to the value hello Lydia. Then hello Lydia will be printed in the debug area. Note that spouse is not an optional. If spouse name does not have a value, no value can be assigned to spouse, and the if statement will return false. In this case, the statements in the curly braces will not be executed at all. Modify your program and run it. You'll notice that nothing appears in the debug area and your program no longer crashes, even though spouse name is nil. This concludes the section on optionals and optional binding. Awesome. Summary: you're doing great. You learned how to use if and switch statements, and you also learned about optionals and optional bindings. You are now able to write your own programs that use if and if then statements to do different things based on different conditions. Use optionals to handle variables in your programs that may or may not have a value, and use optional bindings to execute instructions if a variable or constant value is present. In the next chapter, you will study how to use a range of values instead of single values, and how to repeat program statements using loops.